Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Growth Minded. I'm your host, Ed Hayes. Today we're sitting down with Christy Schweigart and looking forward to connecting with her again. For a little more context, Christy, you're on RUSA, right? The student government at Rutgers University, and you served as the vice president at least 1 year, and I'm sure you're involved in your 4 years as well. And then what also drew me to have this conversation was the things that you do outside of work. So I remember Rusa always showing up. I'll be very motivated to hear from you. And then I learned that you have your own podcast on the side, and it seemed like it's kind of like a journey of what it's like to finish college and try figuring everything out. So I'm interested to hear a little bit about that. Um, your attitude, your learning, and to see if you've heard of the growth mindset before. And as I alluded to, the growth mindset, having this mindset helps you create a love of learning, build resiliency, have greater motivation, purpose, less stress, anxiety, and depression. So my purpose is to, build a community of leaders who kind of think that same way as well. So um, glad you're on. Glad you're on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
So kind of going back to the Rutgers days, what kind of drew you into student government and volunteering your time?
Yeah, so I actually heard about student government when I came for orientation. So at most schools, orientation will be like the day before you start class or, right when you move in, and it's like a 1 day thing and everyone's all together. But as you know, Rutgers is a huge school. So orientation is all summer and you pick one session to go. And going ahead a few years with Rusa, I was involved in orientation, which was really fun. But back when I was a freshman, I had an orientation leader who was fabulous. But he kind of scared me a little bit because he said that, your involvement is really what you get out of being at Rutgers, because there are like 500 plus clubs. There's research you can do. Obviously, the classes are amazing and the professors are great, but really what you get out of it is what you do outside of class. So I just spent the 4 years trying to figure out what I wanted to do out of class. And I changed my major like 3 times. And it was RUSA and other clubs I was involved in that helped me figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I I joined RUSA kind of halfway through the year. Someone had left their position, and my friend was able to help me come on, and that's how I got involved. And I noticed we were doing a lot of work with mental health resources. That was 2015. So right when mental health was really starting to be a conversation among more people, it was starting to be destigmatized and more people were talking about it. And so just through RUSA, I got involved with working with our counseling services, CAPS, and advocating for students that way, and just doing small projects every few years, and then eventually becoming vice president my senior year. And through that, I realized that I was really passionate about healthcare advocacy. Another club I was in was Colleges Against Cancer. And so really being part of those clubs and volunteering helped me figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And now I work in healthcare. So I wouldn't change a thing. I think now that I'm older, I've learned a lot more about leadership. And of course, there are things I'd change, looking back on it, about what type of leader I was, what I was dedicating my time to. But that's all about growing, which I know is what your platform is all about. So I try to think about that too, and think about what I could have done better also with my time in student government and in college.
That's great. I remember the first time I heard of Rusa, I was kind of just shooting baskets, and then my friend called me up. He said, "Hey, come join, check this place out." And you're right when you're saying a lot of the most important things in your college career. Academics are important, and to get through it is important. But those relationships that you kind of create and that you can return to as time goes on, they're invaluable. And like to feel a part of a group and to feel motivated, and not only even in Rusa, you can grow from just a member to having a leadership position. So that always kind of stuck with me. And I was like towards the end of the Rusa meetings, people would be able to come up and say their piece, whatever it was.
Hmm.
Here's your platform to speak your truth or express something that you're really passionate about, or raise awareness to something that people may not be aware of. And I'm glad you touched on like the mental health piece too, because it sounds like you're saying in 2015 it became more of a conversation, and I think it should be continue to grow that conversation as well. I may think that I don't know if there's enough uh, top or points on it just yet. Like I remember reading this article about even recently COVID, and reading how a lot of investment is going into healthcare, as it should, but more so into the supplies and making sure the nurses and doctors have the right thing. And it looked like less than 1% of this $1 billion investment was actually going into mental health. And for me, that resonated because I have friends and family that I know have suffered with anxiety and depression and stress, which kind of correlates to, just trying to have a growth mindset and being able to reduce kind of those stress levels and the anxiety that people feel. So I'm glad you brought that up too, because I'm pretty passionate about that as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I saw that too, that there's less funding going to mental health resources. And so it's just a lot to think about this year about how we support people and how we connect with one another. It goes beyond even just wearing a mask to protect others. It's even just, reaching out to friends and taking care of your own self in your mental health when you're staying at home. And I think this year has really changed a lot about how we look at health holistically. So I agree with what you're saying for sure.
So during this year, I think I saw Times cover saying it's the worst year ever. Um, so I'm glad you're on the call, making it through a year. So with that said, how did you sustain your attitude throughout the year? And to me, sustainability is like, it's not like, for me, it's like I'm not always going to feel a million, $1 million or 100% each day. But I think also ties into maybe some coping strategies. So that would be interesting to hear from you.
Yeah. Um, I wouldn't say that I have the perfect coping strategies. And like you said, um, how we've all coped with this um, isn't the same every day or every month. I think we all had a very different mindset in March than we do now, because in March we were like, okay, this stinks, but it's going to be a couple of weeks or a couple of months. And now it's the end of the year, and we're only a few months away from it being a full year of being inside. So, a lot of has changed, but I think what I've tried to do every day is just think about the things that I still have, and the privileges that I've continued to have throughout this process. Like, I'm very lucky. I've had a job this whole time. I am able to work from home. I have had loss during this year, like thousands of other people, hundreds of thousands of other people, millions of people. Um, but I just try to be thankful for the time that I did have with people, the fact that I'm able to get on a computer and video chat people and call people on the phone. And when it was nice out, I was able to go on walks and meet up with people for picnics. Like, I really, as hard as this year's been, I really have maintained a lot, and I've grown a lot. And so, and I don't like to, it's not healthy to compare traumas to other people or compare a life to other people. But I think in this particular instance, I have been very privileged. So I just try to think about that. And I did start therapy again during this time, which I think was a very good idea, because a lot of people have the perception that you start therapy when things get really bad or when you need it, or when you're kind of forced to do that. Like, if you don't take the time taking care of yourself sustainably, even with your physical health, then you're going to be forced to go to the emergency room at some point, or you're going to be forced to face an illness, or you're going to be forced to go to therapy, or take medication or something like that. And so I tried to start going to therapy again to kind of get ahead of that as best as I could. And I've been doing it ever since. And that's been a huge coping mechanism for me. And my therapist tells me progress over perfection. And that's kind of anytime things get hard, whether it's with work or with friends or with family, I just try to think that even if I'm taking a tiny step every day to be better, if I'm looking at my phone a minute less than I did yesterday or read another page in my book,
Hmm.
uh, it's better than just sitting and doing nothing. And that's what really makes me feel bad, is when I am just like sitting somewhere. And sometimes I'm kind of forced to, due to anxiety or whatever it is. But yeah, I just really try to think about the things that I have and try to move forward as best as I can.
Great point there. Um, on my end, I think 2 years ago, I started doing daily gratitude. So each day for the last few years has been, 5 things for which I'm grateful for, and it's kind of that mantra that you said, a little bit of progress in the short term rather than immediate. It's been a cool journey over the last few years, because now I use OneNote, so it's easy for me to kind of just some days I'll start the day and like, what was life like 2 years ago? I say, oh, it's a lot different, or
Yeah.
better or worse. Kind of the same thing I do a year ago or a month ago, and I think it's called mental contrasting, but I could see where things were, and I feel like I have more to be grateful for, similar to your mindset, where it's like, what can I appreciate that I have? And I think gratitude is was kind of my first step in developing the growth mindset. And I'm not a finished product. I don't ever want to be, kind of just like a work in progress all the time. But that was kind of that caught my attention when you started saying that too. And as this growth mindset community grows, I'm interested in bringing on a relative, um, who helps folks with mental health too. He's a doctor. He practiced probably 30 years or so. So I haven't called him up yet, but I believe that he'd be willing to come on this show as well, and
Yeah.
say, here's what I wish I knew when I was 20 years old, or you know, but even in high school or college, there's a lot of change, and I feel like he'd be a good host to help us too, kind of like a mentor for us as well.
Yeah, that's a great idea, especially with hearing about people's perspectives who are older and have been through a lot of the changes that we have not gone through yet. It's just always great to hear that perspective.
Kind of tying into that piece. Do you have like catalysts in your life? People that like catalysts, I mean like people that motivate you, inspire you, and if not catalysts, people that it's a different it's a different kind of role they play, maybe like a nourisher. Um, and for me, it kind of helps me sustain a good attitude to know, uh, this friend of mine is out there doing a great job. Not that I like to compare myself to him, but just to know that this one friend of mine, he's giving it his best all the time, or on the nourishing end, just like you're saying, being lucky enough to be able to call someone up and hear from them and just have them listen to you rather than have them say, here's all the good things I'm doing. Do
Yeah.
you have different people in your life like that?
Yeah, I think the same way that you do. A big thing that I've tried to do in the past year is, I mean, I look up to people who are famous a lot of the time. Like I have favorite music artists who have, helped me grow as a someone who likes to sing. I look up to leaders in the healthcare industry because I work in healthcare. But this year really started to rethink how I think about my idols or the people who inspire me. And I've done the same exact thing that you just said. I really look at my friends and the people around me and my family and think about all of the great things they do, what they dedicate their time to.
Hmm.
And I use them as my motivators. And it makes me feel good knowing that I'm surrounded by people who want to do good in the world or who want to keep growing. I don't think it's healthy to be around people who are like, okay, I have this job now, I've made my money, and that's it. Like I'm fine now, which, there's nothing wrong with that, with being happy with where you are. I don't want to say that, but um, I just really tried to instead look up to the people around me and to put my love into the people around me too, because everyone needs it. Like you said, there are catalysts in your life and there are nourishers. And um, if you're looking up to your friends and you're supporting your friends and you're help nourishing their growth, and they're also helping you with yours. So, and I've just noticed a much healthier mindset too by doing that. Like I've had less jealousy, I've had less time comparing myself to other people, because instead of thinking in a selfish way about what I'm maybe not doing or what other people are doing better than me, I'm really focused on just like cheering other people on and passing on opportunities to other people or sending things other people's way, because I want to see the people in my life succeed. So that's been a big change in my life this year, and I can't wait to see what that change brings to the relationships that I have with people.
Yeah, great point. I like that you mentioned music as well. I checked out a few of your Spotify playlist or podcast, I should say. And part of it seemed like every episode has a music, um, a new way of listening to music as well.
Yeah.
And music has been a blessing this whole year. But for sure, it's like one of my favorite coping strategies, or just it's one of my favorite ways to just kind of pass the time. And I think I listened to one where you listen to the live versions of songs.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
It's my favorite thing to
Yep,
do.
that is pretty cool. I'll share one of my favorite songs is Ordinary Love by U2. I don't know if you've heard that one before.
It's a good one.
My friend shared that with me on earlier in the year, and it was a live version on Jimmy Fallon. And it was what I like about it is because it starts off with one person just strumming, and then you see Bono start playing, and then kind of the effect of influence to me just beyond the music, one person's kind of ripple on another, and then here comes the bass, and then we have the final guy with the I don't know, I don't remember that fourth instrument, but it kind of ties into what you're saying about the influence that you have on the people in your life, and how you can inspire them while them growing, and again coming back to inspire you. So that's a great point there.
Yeah.
What made you want to I guess a two-parter here. What made you want to do that podcast? And then you can plug it too. I'm sorry, I don't remember the name offhand. Um,
No problem. Yeah. It's called Playlist Profiles, and it's exactly what you said. It's either just myself talking about the music that I love and kind of unpacking the story behind it, or even just listing some songs that I love. Like, I think in another life I'd love to be a radio DJ. Like, my mom actually worked for a station when she was in college, and then my college house was actually an old radio station where there were there was a bunch of instruments in the basement and a stereo and lights, which was really fun. But I started the idea because I love music so much. And I like a lot of different kinds of music. And I realized that you can learn a lot about someone through, and it's not a secret, everyone knows this, but so I'm not some genius or anything, but you learn a lot about people through the music that they love. I wanted to have a record of the friends that I had and their stories, because everyone has different interests and everyone has different stories that they attach to songs. And not everyone's an open book. Like, I'm a pretty open book. Like, I kind of tell my friends everything. They know everything about me, but not everyone in your life is like that. And so I wanted to uncover that and interview my friends, and instead of it just being a normal interview, each person comes on and picks a handful of songs to help tell the story of their life. And so I've been doing that for a little over 2 years now, and I've learned so many different things about the people in my life through the songs that they've chosen. And it has also helped people tell hard stories in their life. by, telling it through the song instead of just like saying, hey, this happened to me or I experienced this. They've chosen a song that represents that time in their life. And that's something that's been really special to me. So it took me a long time to actually come out with the podcast. I had the idea back in 2016. I didn't launch it until 2018. And so that's a big lesson I learned is, there's not a rush to do everything. I think a lot of people during this pandemic have felt like, oh, everyone's starting a side business or a side hustle, but I'm not ready just yet. And I'm still in the creation phase and the ideation phase. And I think that's okay because I've done that. It took me 2 years to launch something. So if anyone out there is listening and is not yet ready to start something, it's okay. You can take your time. But yeah, I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but it's something I've really enjoyed. But I've also tried not to make it something that stresses me out. Like I haven't come out with an episode in 2 months, and that's okay because I want to enjoy it and I don't want it to be something that that causes me stress and makes me not want to do it at all. So that's kind of another thing I've learned this year is that, you got to take breaks and you have to like continue to love the things that you love instead of beating it to the ground.
Yeah, great point there. Yeah, I'm gonna let that one sink in a little bit for the listeners. I'll let you guys think on that for a second. There's some good points, but really, everyone does have their own, way of thinking, and the music that people attach to can help tell their story. Like I was at my parents' house this week, and I hear this song, "If We Make It Through December, Come On" by Merrill Haggard, and it's just a great. It's just it's a better way. Like I can't even express that. Like he expressed it. This guy Merrill Haggard does it better than I could have. Like basically, he's just saying like if we make it through December, we'll be fine. Like this guy lost his job. This singer or the guy singing in this one, he lost his job. His daughter's wondering why she's not getting any Christmas presents this year, and it's kind of like a timeless song that definitely fits this year. And I feel it's kind of the same way. If we all kind of make it through the end of the year, we have vaccines going out now, and I think the worst hopefully is behind us, and 2021 can be a great year.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely a lot of hope right now, which is what a lot of us have needed for sure.
What's it been like working in healthcare over this time too? What are some interesting things that you've learned?
It's been interesting. I think the biggest thing that has stressed me out, other than COVID directly, are the other things that have been slipping and the progress that has been halted because of the attention that we've had to give to COVID, because it is like the crisis right now. But I work in the oncology and cardiology space on the value-based care side. And since no one is really going to the doctor this year to go to screenings, a lot of people are putting off their yearly checkups. A lot less people are getting diagnosed with cancer or screened for cancer. And so there's a huge fear, and there's a lot of science to back it up, that this is going to affect the next 5 to 10 years, because as many people know, that once cancer gets beyond, you know, goes through the different stages, it gets harder to treat, and it's a lot more painful to go through treatment and a lot more costly, rather than if you caught cancer, if you get diagnosed with it when it's in an early stage. And so that's something that has been worrying me. And like we talked about, mental health is really scary to think about, in terms of how kids mostly are going to be affected in the future from not being in school or not seeing friends, and really small kids. Like I was in kindergarten when 9/11 happened, and as that was horrible, and that was like a one-day thing, and of course there was so much loss, but these kids who are that young are, dealing with such longer period of crisis. And so I think, I was afraid of fire drills for years after 9/11. And so now I can't even imagine how kids are scared are going to be scared from this now in the future. And so I just think about stuff like that. And even in the cardiology space, like even young people are starting to have long-term effects on their heart from COVID. So um, that's a lot of what I've learned through my job now. And it's a problem we're going to be thinking about in the future, and how we get on top of this stuff. How can we create trust again in the public to go to the doctor? People have lost their health insurance because they've lost jobs. So how would they, like, why would they want to go to the doctor if they can't afford it? So yeah, there are just a lot of secondary problems that have come from the COVID pandemic. So it's important to keep those in mind too, which can be depressing, but unfortunately it's the reality right now. So just have to stay grounded in those facts and try to push forward and try to make things better in the future.
Hmm. Interesting points. Um, for someone not directly involved in the healthcare industry. So yeah, thanks for that piece. I was speaking with someone recently about like the kids and like the younger generation too. It'll be interesting, good or bad, to see what does happen over the next few years with technology. Like, are people losing kind of the that connection? Like, luckily, through school and college, there wasn't really too many breaks on my end where I couldn't, reach out to friends or see them daily. So it'll be interesting to think about. Even like a cousin of mine or a neighbor of mine who are just a few years younger than me. They're both in college right now, but it's all virtual, it's all online. And it ties into the earlier point you're saying, is like some of the best moments in college or the best learnings come in some of those groups, those Thursday nights or those Monday nights. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. Um,
Me too.
yeah. So yeah, I just remember like even screen time, managing screen time and stuff. You know what I mean? Like even for us, it's something that we still have to manage. And then I didn't know how to learn. Like, no one taught me how to learn. No one taught me how to manage my screen time. It was something I had to learn over time through kind of like experience. So and I know there's no class on managing screen time, and I don't know. I kind of wish there was. Not so regimented, but in some sort of way, because again, I think it ties back into mental health and comparisons,
Yeah,
sometimes unhealthy comparisons. I'm not saying everything out there is bad for you. I think what I've started to learn is that everyone kind of has a voice, and you can either, use it to promote something positive, maybe something in between, or something negative. And I kind of took a break from social media for a while, and then, kind of during this break, I learned like, what, I do have kind of a voice, and similar to what you did with your own podcast too. It's let me try to have a positive influence on the people in my life, and this concept of like a circle of influence. Let me try to grow and have a better impact on my circle of influence, because there are a lot
yeah,
of things, not in our control.
I agree. And I've been trying to manage my time with social media too, and I feel that same way. Like I have been wanting to just delete things altogether, but right now that's how you stay connected to people, and there is a lot of good from social media too. I think it's easy to focus on all of the bad because that's what really hits us in the face, and so it's comforting to hear that someone else has kind of gone through that same process of taking the time away and then realizing I can make this a positive space if I want it to be, and it's up to me to do that. So I'm happy you're taking the steps to do that. It's a good idea.
Thanks, appreciate it. As the new year begins, this year comes to an end. Are there areas in your life that you like to grow in as 2021 approaches?
Yeah, I think I want to learn how to be happy with where I'm at.
Hmm.
I think I think, you know, I'm only 24 and I've been out of college for 2.5 years now. You're, yeah, I mean, you're in school for 12 years or more than that. Yeah, for more than that. But you're used to each grade, things progressing. When you're in college, you know, you have to get a different internship every year. There's so much pressure to be promoted at work too, like early on in your career, because, you know, you grow pretty quickly when you're young and you're first starting out. And I'm just trying to just be happy with where I'm at because I am. I like my job. I like what I'm doing. I want to obviously keep learning, but yeah, I'm just happy where I'm at, and I just want to continue to think about that and not always be looking and waiting and worrying about what's next. And obviously, like, I'm someone who has anxiety, and that's kind of part of it. It's just always being worried about the future. But I think now I have a good process in place to just be happy with where I'm at now. So that's what I really hope to do in this next year, and just keep learning about things that I don't know about. Like, um, a lot of us have taken this year to take a step back and think about the things that are important to us and even the things that we don't know a lot about. And I just want to keep doing that next year, reading new books, seeking out new influences, seeking out new music. I mean, stuff like that really
Hmm.
impacts you. So that's the big thing for next year. No huge goal, really, just to be happy with what I have.
Great.
How
Uh,
about you?
So earlier in this year, like for me, it's like kind of like pacing. How can I, like, I have a lot of drive, I think, but if you're giving it 100% all the time, it's you can't sustain it.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I was reading this because, for example, like I like to run, and I'd be like, all right, if I can run, a mile this week, let me do a little bit more. And then it's November or October, and I got some sore knees, like because I didn't pace myself well. So I'm trying to pace myself, whether it's physically and even at work. I did start adapting this kind of pacing. Like I work in you ever hear of the Pomodoro Technique?
Yes, I love it.
Yeah, I do. That's kind of how I operate during the work week if uh, if I need kind of an extra boost.
Hmm.
So similar to like I kind of transferred what I learned about pacing yourself from running, this book on running, to working. And they say, oh, if you're training for a marathon, give it 60% week one, 70%, 60, 90, not like 100, you know what I mean? So, similar throughout the work week, it's not that I'm not working, it's that the amount of like focused attention that I have, I'm going to kind of vary it throughout the week. And I've been finding that pretty helpful. So, Thursdays, Tuesdays, they'll be busier days for me where I'm more focused on intently doing something, but on the other days it's more like um, maybe more reactive, like more time to process things and kind of more, it's almost more natural, I think, rather than always being focused on something. So I want to extend that into the next year. I want to be able to pace myself in anything, in anything, enjoy kind of the breaks throughout the day and the breaks in conversations and um, just to continue to try to stay, mindful and kind of things like that. Of course, books and reading too. Excited to see um, what those will bring over the next year or so.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to do. I use the Pomodoro method a lot. I need to do it more. And so this is a good push to continue to do that and pace myself with big projects. So I will keep you updated about how that goes this next year.
Cool. Yeah, I'll be checking in. Don't worry. No, it's interesting. I think I've only met so far three people that have used the technique, so it's not well known. and it's something I'll speak on in another episode too, to just stay like we're all working from home, no one's over our shoulders,
Yep,
um, and it's a way to kind of stay on top of it all.
definitely.
I'll close out with any good book suggestions or music, maybe a favorite song, favorite book.
So oh my gosh, I've been like plowing through books. So I'm trying to think of, I actually have a list on my phone. But the song I really like right now, I actually just started listening to it. So I used to be a huge, Hannah Montana came out when I was at the perfect age for it when I was like 10. So perfect
Hmm.
age to love Disney Channel and someone like Hannah Montana. So I loved Miley Cyrus, loved her. But then as I grew up, my parents love rock music. I really love punk rock music and alternative music. Now I love pop music again, and like I'm a huge fan of it. But I kind of got away from Miley Cyrus. But now her recent album that came out, I think she really found her sound, and it's a sound that I really enjoy. So I am happy, and I was listening to it right before I got on with you. So I'm excited to listen to that again. So I've been loving that album and just all of the music. I mean, I think the women and non-binary people have killed music this year. Like, I know men have come out with great music too, but I just think this year, Taylor Swift has come out with 2 albums, Lady Gaga, Ariana Grande, Megan Thee Stallion, Dua Lipa, Miley Cyrus. I feel like I'm missing, oh, Chloe and Halle. Like, so many people have come out with great, outstanding albums. And so I think once we're all able to gather, um, and dance and have fun with one another, it's going to be a lot of fun because we're going to have a lot of music to enjoy. Um, a book that I really have loved, I really liked Palaces for the People. It's a book about gathering spaces and how they contribute to people's health and well-being. So like looking at the importance of libraries to a community, the importance of parks and schools and everything like that. It was great. I love healthcare and I'm passionate about it, but healthcare goes beyond just hospitals and policy and pandemics. It goes into people's access to food and access to gather
Hmm.
and travel around. And so really loved that book. So I'm hoping to read more books like that in the new year. What music and books have you liked?
Um, I'm a like I have a Spotify account and they say I'm a generalist, so I like a little bit of everything. It kind of depends on the I guess the day or the vibe I'm going for. But Kid Cudi did just put out a new album.
Yes.
Um, but so I was going through Kid Cudi for a while recently, like in the last 5 days. So I'm like, oh, it's kind of cool. But there's a song called "Baptized in Fire" by Kid Cudi and Travis Scott. It's explicit, so I'll put a warning out there. But I just kind of like the title of it, "Baptized in Fire." It's like growing despite um, your circumstances or coming up in a tough spot. And for him, it's probably like being able to put out an album. I don't know all of his background history, but being able to put out an album despite a lot of the things that he's seen in his life too. Um, so for me, it's kind of like hope, even in like some trying times. So that's a song I've been having on repeat recently. But I would say for the course of the year, um, U2 and Ordinary Love. I'll shout out my buddy Drew Parmar for that suggestion. And if you even watch it on YouTube, the live version is a little bit better too. So it really depends on the uh, the time of day, the day in the week maybe. But I would say those 2 songs that I like right now. And
Awesome.
in terms of books, I've been reading the Harry Potter. I started reading Harry Potter towards the end of last year,
Yeah.
so I'm 5 books in, and that's something I'm savoring. I'm not in a rush.
Almost done. Yeah.
Not in a rush. Like it was a nice little. tradition. Like wherever I was throughout the course of the year, like I'd read the book and then I'd say I'm watching the movie afterwards, and like it's just gonna be amazing. So by the time
Yeah.
the fifth one rolls around, I have like the playlist going in my ear after I finish the book. It's like really setting the Harry Potter mood. Um, I just watch it by myself, and it was great. It was one of the highlights of the year. So two more books to go. Not in a rush. I kind of want to read a lot of different, some other stuff in the meantime, and come
Yeah.
back to it.
At least with the seventh book, you'll have two movies. So
hmm Two
you're
for the
good
price
there.
of
I think
one.
it's the seventh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's seven. I
hmm
forget the amount, but yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah, so that wraps up everything I got on my end today. I want to thank Christy again for joining Growth Minded. Any other you want any shout outs before we wrap it up?
No, I mean, thank you so much for having me. Excited to see what you put out. People can find me at Playlist Profiles, which is my podcast, and then I actually have another that I share with my friends that's healthcare related. It's called The Triage, and we started that earlier this year. So, if you want to learn more about healthcare, but in a fun way and conversational way, that's what you can find from that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope everyone um, has a happy new year and is able to spend time online with their family, or if you have been with family this whole time, you're able to cherish your moments with them. And yeah, just wishing everyone the best.
All right, I'll pause the recording, and thanks everyone for listening. This is Growth Minded.